have three folks who get on the high wire to share something ripped from the headlines, something valuable, something that superintendents get, something that we would understand from our colleagues, those serving on the front lines with us. Today, unfortunately, Paul Defendini from Farmingdale in Nassau County is homesick. We're going to find an opportunity for him to share his very important story about leading his community through crisis in the future, but we wish him a fast recovery. I am pleased to introduce to you today Dr. Lorna Lewis from Malvern, who after a very impactful career across a number of school districts and in a number of roles, looks towards retirement and sharing some words from the field on how to bloom where you're planted.
So you're probably wondering why I'm wearing this gown. Well, in 1982, I was graduated from Columbia University. $250 I had to pay for that gown. It broke the bank. And I said, every chance I get, I'm gonna wear it. So you see, this June will be my 43rd class where I wear this gown. But then the question is, how did I get to the place where I am wearing a gown? So let's begin. I was born in that house that you see there. No running water, no electricity, no indoor plumbing, outdoor. But don't worry, I had a big swimming pool, that river that was in the back of my property. Those two people on the veranda are my cousins. Very different trajectory that they had. So the question is, how did I end up with a doctorate at 26 years old? Because I had a caring individual. I had an aunt who had just finished college. She graduated. I was born out of wedlock. Parents, my father was Indian. My mother was black, of course, and the Indian family didn't want me. My great-grandmother, who owned the property, said, "You're gonna take her." And my aunt took me and took care of me. And at the age of 3, she said, "You're going to kindergarten." And that's how I'm here. Made all the difference, having a caring individual. This is the elementary school that I went to. 60 students in a class, but we learned because we had great teachers. And like that banana tree that I talked to you about in 2018, I was that immigrant that came here and with the right conditions, thrived and even produced little banana trees because I had the windows cleaned, the new air filters, and that banana tree grew just like I did. By the way, these are the IBM cards that I had to use, no computers. That's my slide rule that I did calculations on. None of you know about that. That's the typewriter that I used to type my dissertation. And then when I got the Apple IIe, when I started working, because I now could afford an Apple IIe, I did wonders on that machine. And I'll talk to you about that. Because that machine caused all regions algebra. Just remember that. In life, you need marigolds. You know, marigold is a plant that you want in your garden because it allows other plants to thrive. It will bring nutrients to your other plants. But you don't want walnuts. Walnut trees suck the life out of you. They suck the life out of everyone. So you want to avoid walnuts. But I was really, really fortunate in a very, very early part of my career to have met one of the best marigolds, Bill Johnson. I interviewed with him in 1987, and during the interview he said, "Are you hungry? You want to go to lunch?" And I'm like, what the heck? I was interviewing for a physics teacher's position, and when I got to lunch, he said, "You know, I really need a department chair." So I became a physics teacher and department chair, and it was there that we analyzed the kids' data, and we were allowed to look at success, and that's how we got all regions algebra. I had some other marigolds. You heard about Regent Johnson. She handed me the head of curriculum, the department chair of curriculum. Tom Rogers, in my very early days, at this very conference, he asked me if I would join the Board of Regents to talk about assessments. Mo Donahue, my partner across the state. Jay Rorona, I would not be here without him. He saved my life, and I'll talk about that. Maureen Bright, God rest her soul, embraced me in my first year as a superintendent. So thank you, Maureen. I'm going to tell you, I had the worst first year as a superintendent. I had a search consultant, love him very much. He said he would guide me through that first year. In August, he passed away on a golf course, 61-year-old. My attorney who wrote my contract was brought up on charges. The superintendent that I had just left was arrested. My board president was arrested. I was writing letters to jail. And the one that you missed is the one that led me to understand my moral compass. The most bigoted person I have ever met. But you know what? I learned that you can't be all things to all people, that you need to have a moral compass when you are a superintendent. You have to be guided by that. You cannot, if you do everything for everyone, you do nothing for all. So please remember, serve with a moral compass. I also think about, in my superintendency, if you don't have this book, The 4 Agreements, you should have it. Those 4 agreements, every leadership team I ever worked with has that. The first thing is you never take things personally. It's never about you. So don't take things personally. Your word is your bond. It is the most important thing. People trust you by the word, by your word. You have to live by that. Don't make assumptions. Do the homework. Do the homework, ask good questions, and finally, always do your best. Age quod agis. I'm looking around this room, and Lavelle would say, this room does not look like the children in New York State. It looks very different. This is what the children in New York State look like. I'm a data person, so for me, that's what it looks like. 41% of our students are white. And I look around this room, 93% of our superintendents are white. We've got to figure out a way to grow the students, grow the superintendency, so they look more like our children. So that's why that diversity and inclusion is very important. We have to learn to have ladder holders, as Phyllis Harrington would say. Have ladder holders so more people, this group, will grow. It's okay to be the first. I've been the first in a lot of things, but let me tell you something. You cannot be the only. It's important that we make room for others to follow. It's hard work. I know it's hard work. I always talk about the bumblebee. The bumblebee is an insect. It is too heavy to fly, but it does so. Nobody tells it it can't fly because it has to flap its wings 200 times a second in order to have that lift. But it goes ahead and lifts. That's what we do. We flap our wings 1,000 times a second in order for us to thrive and have the courage to lead. How do we do that? By setting a bold vision, taking responsibility for what we are in charge of. Always lead with that moral compass. Do what's right. Be in charge, be humble, respond to data, as I have, but really being humble, being decisive, being open to change, be willing to be vulnerable, being a risk taker, but above all, stand up for your children. That's what this is about. Crises are going to come your way always. The question is, during a crisis, what are you going to learn from that experience? How will you learn? What will this situation make possible? Crisis and opportunities are 2 sides of a coin. And you can always find opportunities, even in the midst of crisis, because you think of your crisis as not as a stepping stone for other things. Let me explain one huge, probably the most impactful thing I've ever done in my whole life. I arrived at Malvern. Malvern was the first district that was ordered to desegregate in New York State. And there was a school that was named Lindner Place. And Paul Lindner is the head of the KKK on Long Island. And the NAACP approached me and said, for 60 years, we've been trying, even with Martin Luther King, to try to change the name of that school. And what did I do? I got my kids involved. to go to City Hall. And guess what? That school no longer is Linder Place. It's now Acorn Way. Don't use up my time. Okay. All right. In the superintendency, it's not, you heard Ray say, you've got to check on with your colleagues. Pilots every 60 miles have to check to see if they're on course, because that 60 miles will take you 1 degree off where you are. So the lake you want to go to might become a mountain. We have to check with each other. We have to fly in formation like the geese. You ever watch the geese? They fly together. There's a reason why they do that, because it creates better lift. But also, the leader doesn't always remain the leader. It uses collective leadership. The leader sometimes has to go in the back and another leader takes over. There's always a honker, somebody in the back encouraging you to go ahead. And if one falls, another falls with them to stay and encourage them. And finally, we need to be like the California redwoods. In fact, I think we are. The California redwoods would grow 350 feet tall. They don't have deep roots, but what they have are interlocking roots. And they feed on each other, give each other resources. And that creates a firm anchor. So even in the strongest storms, they can stand up and hold each other up. That's what Niskus is all about. That's that interlocking roots, so that we stand together. We support one another. We encourage one another. And when we do that, we become stronger. That's Niskus. So thank you so much for listening.